Hi, this is Dave with NAPCO Tech Support. Today we will be discussing migrating SQL databases. This is for very advanced users. So if you ever find yourself saying things like, "I'm not a computer guy," I would not recommend trying the steps in this video. Please feel free to pause the video at any time if it makes it easier to follow along. In this video, I will be covering 4 of the most common scenarios where this technique would be used. Scenario number 1 would be if you currently have a working database and you need to move to a newer version of SQL on the same PC. Scenario number 2 would be the same setup as the first, but you want to migrate to an upgraded database on a different machine. And scenario number 3 is for when you run into a situation where all you have is a back file and need to get it upgraded to a new SQL version. Finally, scenario number 4 would be a combination of any of the previous 3, as well as upgrading from one version of DL Windows to another. In order to proceed, we must first install Microsoft's SQL Server Management Studio, also known as SSMS, which is what I will be calling it for the rest of the video. To install SSMS, do a search for SSMS download. Make sure the link you click on takes you to learn.microsoft.com. Click on the download SSMS link on their site. It will then take you to the download. Find the Download SQL Server Management Studio link and click on that. When you run the installer for SSMS, you can change the default install location. I recommend leaving it at the default. All you have to do now is click Install. There is no options to choose, just a default install. When you first launch SSMS, you will be greeted with the connection screen. You will select the server you wish to connect to next to the server name. You will set the authentication to SQL Server Authentication. The login will be SA, both lowercase, and the password should be alarmlock@2012. If you used a different password than our default, then you would use that. Click Connect and you should see your information populate in the Object Explorer on the left. Now that we have SSMS installed and we know how to connect, we can get to the first scenario. Sometimes you will come across a scenario where the SQL server that DL Windows is using needs to be upgraded to a new version of SQL. First, you would connect to your current SQL server. You can see here I am connected to my SQL 2014 server. I will be moving this from 2014 to 2022. First, you must export the server as a data tier application. To export the database as a data tier application, you right-click on the existing database and choose Task, then Export Data Tier Application. When the export window opens, click Next. On the next screen, click Browse and choose the location you wish to save the file to. Name the file the exact same name as the database. In this case, it's alarmlock.5.5.4 with capital A and capital L. Make sure you have a dot between the K and the 5. Click Save, then click Next. When you get to the next screen, verify your information and click Finish. After it finishes, click Close. Now that you have exported your data tier application, you can now import it to your new SQL server. After you have installed your new version of SQL, in my case, it's SQL 2022, you can now connect to that server with SSMS. Once connected, you will right-click on the database and choose the option Import Data Tier Application. When the window opens, click Next. In the section where it says Import from local disk, click Browse, and select the file you previously exported. After you have selected your file, click Open. After you click Open, click Next. Verify your information is correct and click Next. Then click Finish. After it finishes the import, click Close. You can now connect your DL Windows to your new SQL server. Scenario number 2 would be where you have the old SQL server on one machine and the new SQL server on another. You follow the exact same steps as in the previous scenario. The only difference is, after you export the data tier application, you would then copy the file to a thumb drive or a network drive and then move the file to the new PC, and then import the data tier application just like in the previous steps. If you run into an issue where it tells you that you already have a database because you previously connected with DL Windows, first, verify that database isn't being used, and if it isn't, you can delete the database by simply clicking on it in SSMS and then hitting the delete key on the keyboard and then click OK when the delete window opens. Sometimes you will end up with a situation where the client only has a .back file and nothing else. Maybe the old server dies or the machine no longer exists and all they have is a .back file. Keep in mind that .back files are only compatible with the version of SQL that created it. First, you will install whichever version of SQL you wish to have installed. After SQL has been installed, you will copy the .back file to the server's backup folder. The location is usually located in C, Program Files, Microsoft SQL Server, then the server name, MSSQL, Backup. In my case, I'm using SQL 2022, and my server is named mssql16.alsqlexpress22. After you have the .back file copied over to the backup folder, you will connect to the server with SSMS and then right-click on the database and choose the option Restore Databases. When the Restore Database window opens, click on Device option and then the 3 dots to the right. When the Select Backup Devices window opens, click Add and it should default to the backup folder where you copied your file to. Find your file in the list and select it. When you are done, click OK and then click OK again. After your backup has been selected, click OK again and it will begin the restore process. If it succeeds, you are done and you can connect with DL Windows. If it fails, you should get an error at the top of the screen. In that error, it will tell you what failed. If it tells you that it is a different version, it will usually give you a version number. For example, you can see here that I have a bunch of SQL servers, and they each have a number after MSSQL. That number denotes the version. You can search online for what these version numbers equate to. Once you know the correct version, you would then install that version of SQL. Restore the backup using the same steps, and then begin the export data tier application process outlined in scenario number 1. Finally, if you run into a situation where you either have to migrate a database to a new version of SQL and upgrade DL Windows on the same PC or move to another PC, or if you only have a .back file but it's from an older version of DL Windows and you need to be able to upgrade that to a new version of SQL and a new version of DL Windows, then you would use the most suitable scenario previously explained first. After you have imported your data into SSMS, You will note the version of your DL Windows database by looking at its name. If it is lower than the version you need it to be, you will run your DL Windows database configuration. After the database configuration launches, you would set your config like you normally would, except down at the bottom, you will check Enable Database Configuration Options. And then click the Create New Database and Import Data from Previous Version radial. This will now allow you to click on the drop-down next to Database Name. You should now see your older version. Select the older version, click Next, and then complete your database configuration like you normally would. That concludes our video on advanced SQL migration for DL Windows. For more tech videos or documentation for a NAPCO device, head on over to our tech library at tech.napcosecurity.com.